So today I want to talk about the importance of structure and specifically why structure matters when arranging the structure of your entertainment. So anything that you're doing that is not related to positive habits or work. So when I say positive habits, I mean eating, going to the gym, things like meditation and journaling and whatever routine you might have. So because I don't think despite what you may hear from certain individuals, if you are a person that works well with having rituals that don't involve work, then those rituals and those routines, you should continue because there are some people that can just wake up and go straight to work. Some people they it's not that they can't do it, it's that they don't function optimally if they take that approach. Because remember, everybody's different, everybody's brain is different, everybody's biology is different, everybody's experiences are different. And so when you listen to one person give you advice, it doesn't mean that that advice is applicable to every other person. That's why you hear people always talking about the paleo diet or the keto diet or the carnivore diet. Well, you probably know testing out different things that you don't respond well to everything equally. That's why you'll hear conversations of people saying, "Oh, this worked for me, but this worked, this didn't work for me." It's like, "Oh, that the opposite worked for me. I found results doing this. Oh, I didn't really find results doing that, but this other thing worked for me." Right? So remember that you can't take yourself and conform your being to somebody else's image and to somebody else's how somebody else lives their life. You can't conform to the how they live their life. Now, it doesn't mean that success doesn't leave clues, like Tony Robbins says. Of course, success leaves clues, and you can do the same things that other people do and get the same result depending on what those things are. But remember that you also function differently. So, what I would recommend is that when you have a structure around your entertainment, it allows your brain to actually stay focused, and you can be more generative and more creative and you could feel better. In fact, I wrote a journal today, and it's a pretty basic one. It's nothing deep or anything like that, but I wrote, the less I distract myself, the better I feel, obviously, right? By the way, a lot of this is actually in handwriting. I can think more clearly and be more present. I am more productive and more fulfilled. So, which means that I have a greater sense of meaning because I'm able to like clear the noise and I'm getting deeper and deeper in touch with, who I am or who I truly am. And even though I may not know who that person is, I can more easily get access to that zone at least. May not be access to the specific details, but in that zone, I'm getting closer. I feel like I'm getting closer. I'm less confused and less anxious, right? And the reason I'm less anxious is because when you watch a lot of different things, you start to open up a lot of doors. You open up a lot of doors that you cannot close. It's like you open up different boxes and all those boxes remain open. And you can't close them all because in order to close all the boxes, you would probably have to either stop consuming the content or pursue every path to its logical completion. And you don't have enough time to do that. So you think of all the different options that are out there and you keep watching things. Oh, I should do this and that and this and that. And all of a sudden in your brain, even though you're not consciously thinking about all those open loops, they're still open and you can't resolve them. That's why you keep kind of ruminating on certain things or hearing things or, you can't seem to calm down. So you're anxious because remember, anxiety, what is it? It's a chaos signal. You have too many options available to you and you don't know specifically which option to exercise to get to the next step and you don't know what that next step would be, hence the anxiety and all the different options that are there. So and then you're less confused because the anxiety is removed or it's diminished and now you feel a little bit more clear. You may not have crystal clear clarity crystal clear clarity, but you're definitely less confused because you don't have different points of view or different opinions that are coming from different people and different voices resonating and bouncing around in your head as per the entertainment, whether it's TV shows or movies or YouTube videos or Instagram, TikTok, social media, and what have you. I feel the energy rising and I know that it's pure potential. What does this mean? Let me explain this. When I say I feel the energy rising and I know it's pure potential, what I'm saying is in the past, what I would feel is I would feel that energy kind of in my chest and I wouldn't know how to resolve it. So I'd kind of frame it as anxiety. And sometimes you can frame the same experience in a different light and it'll have a different quality based off your perception. So what I mean by that, and I think a common example I remember hearing from Sam Harris back in the day is that you can the same chemicals that are released when you're about to go on a roller coaster ride are the same chemicals that are released when you are or you're about to hit the drop or something, are the same chemicals that are released if you have stage fright or something. So the feeling, but in one instance you're labeling it as excitement, in the other instance you're labeling it as anxiety. But it's a similar feeling and the similar chemicals are being released, but it's the way you perceive it. In other words, the context that you're in and how you're thinking about things. So when you remove that negative context and you start to think about things clearly, then that energy that you're feeling that you would have labeled as anxiety is now energy, because you can actually put it in a direction that you're oriented towards, that you're deciding separate from what you're hearing and what you're thinking, because it's really hard to really think about, to listen to yourself, to listen to your own voice. And if you're religious, the voice of God, if you're always consuming things, if you're always talking to people, if you're always scrolling, if you're always watching things, who are you? What are you? You don't know. You can't make sense of it. So you have to remove all of that stuff so you can get more in touch. And that might take a little bit of time. Oh, I actually didn't finish the sentence. I feel the energy rising and I know that it's pure potential emerging from the dungeons of my soul. So it's kind of like a poetic phrase. But what I'm trying to say here is that that potential emerging from the dungeons of my soul, it's kind of like the dungeons are things that are locked up, that are in the darkness. But now you're kind of accessing those. And so you're allowing that energy to be released from those places. And your soul, that's truly who you are at your core, right? What unique gifts you have. It's not necessarily your idiosyncrasies, but it's really your essence, right? And that could take a lifetime to discover. I feel a greater connection with myself and the world. I feel closer to God. Now, again, the closer to God bit, I'm not going to go too far down into this rabbit hole because you may not resonate with that. But what I'm trying to say is when you have demons screaming at you all the time, you can't hear that whisper. You can't hear God's whisper. So when you release that stuff, you can hear that a little bit more clearly. And I feel a greater connection with myself and the world. So things are kind of becoming more aligned. They're more integrated. You're more connected with what's going on, as opposed to taking all of this out there and trying to make sense of it, which is impossible. You can't do it. That's why a lot of that is rattling in your brain. So when you take all that out and you center it and you kind of focus, you can really stay connected with yourself and the world. So I hope that was helpful. Remember, having a structure helps deeply with generating these types of experiences that I just described, right? So when you're going to wake up, you do XYZ, you wake up at a certain time every single day, you go to bed the same time every single day. Wake up the same time, you go to bed the same time. Okay? So you wake up, you're going to do XYZ, and then you're going to have whatever that happens to be. But the point is that you want to be able to prime yourself, and typically that's going to be in the form of like rituals or habits or traditions, and things that I talk about in general are going to be, well, for me anyway, it could be exercise for you, but for me it's stretching. So for me, typically it would be showering first thing in the morning. I like to shower, and then I'll end it with cold water so I can wake myself up, but I don't just do straight cold showers. Because I'm not really, I like to enjoy my shower and then end it with cold water. So cold water, get the adrenaline up, meditate, right? Journal, memo, a stretch. It could be like in different orders, and I'm going to explain in a future video how the orders can feed into everything else. So how the one preceding the habit preceding the next one can actually feed into the one that follows it, which is pretty cool. And then I get started with my day. So I'll have all of my meetings, bang, and then in the middle, I'll have a gap where I go to the gym. And then I'll end my day at my meetings, whatever they are, like 9, 10 o'clock technically. Um, and I'll designate some time, right? So if I say I'm gonna do, I'm allowed 1 hour, or like what I say is one click, and I'm gonna go into this in more detail in the future. But essentially, what I mean is what you don't want to do is you don't want to put a limit on yourself of how much time you're going to spend on social media or watching stuff. The reason why is because you're going to just keep strolling. You're going to say, I have 20 minutes, and you're going to be like a monkey, and you're going to have all of these chemicals. And that's the worst thing that you can do for your brain, because you're constantly getting these hits, right? These hits of dopamine. And it's like, okay, so now the next thing, and you can't focus your brain on anything, right? Your attention span, you're destroying your attention and your ability to focus by doing that. And you're also consuming all this content that I'm telling you is making you anxious. It's making you confused. It's fucking you up, right? So what you need to do is tell yourself that you're allowed one click. Now I know social media functions a little bit differently, but for me, what I mean by that is I don't get to just browse a million videos and then, oh, okay, well, I've watched 2 minutes of each one, but now I'll pick this one. No, once I click on something, I'm like, this is what you're committing to. One click, whether it's 20 minutes long, 10 minutes long, or an hour long, right? It's going to sustain your focus. And the best thing that you can do is whatever that thing happens to be, try to find some lesson from it, right? Take some notes, try to find some use out of it. Actively make your brain work and think, how can I possibly use this? Even if it's entertainment, right? Now, sometimes not always entertainment, but it's usually if it's educational or something tangentially related to education, you could take a lesson from it. So maybe it doesn't apply really to entertainment, maybe more towards like films or TV shows. But tell yourself you're only allowed, one or two, or whatever however you want to distribute it. I suggest one, because one TV show typically is one episode is 30 minutes, one movie is whatever 2 hours, one YouTube video is whatever between 1 and 2 hours max. But again, it doesn't mean that you can't select shorter ones. You can select one that's only 10 minutes long or 15 minutes long. That's fine. But you want to avoid the scenario where you're consuming a lot of content and you're like scrolling a lot. So I know that may be tricky to manage with the social media, but you can't have your cake and eat it too. So anyway, I hope that was helpful. I'm going to speak a little bit more on that social media point in the future, because I think there's a better way to actually address that. Because if you want to be on Instagram or on TikTok or on Twitter or X, that's a tricky space to navigate. Yeah, I think you'd have to limit yourself as far as time, because you can't say click. You can't say one instance of the thing, right? That's really what I mean. It's like one instance. One click refers to one instance of that activity. So one instance of that activity, one instance, right? So it's like bang, you engage, and then you kind of fully engage with that thing, whether it's a TV show or a movie or a YouTube video. Now, in the case of social media, I think there are different limitations, and probably best to limit yourself to, I don't know what it is, but probably like 10 minutes a day. But in any case, I'll get into that in a future video. I hope that was really helpful. This was very comprehensive, I think, and very clear. That's what I was hoping for. So I hope you got some use out of that. And I wish you good luck. And of course, I will see you tomorrow, because I upload these every day.